everyone, and welcome to Module 4 in the course. This is a very exciting module because in it I'm going to be introducing you to a very powerful tool that we're going to be using for the rest of the semester, and hopefully that you'll be using in the future beyond this course to do statistical data analysis. Obviously, in a course like Poly 301, this is a very important goal of our curriculum. We want to get you some tools so that you'll be able to do some quantitative analytical research in the future. And as I was saying in previous modules and in previous class discussions, even though this seems like a daunting task, even though this seems like a technology that seems very niche that you'll never use in the future, I think that you'll be very surprised as you go through your career in learning and discovering just how common actually it is to see this type of thing in your workplaces. This is where we're trying to go today in this tutorial. I'm just going to walk you through the basic steps to get you set up in this software environment called RStudio. We're going to be working on it in order to create code that will manipulate data so that we can get answers to the research questions that we'll be posing on the basis of our completion of Module 3. So once we've got this really good question, we want to answer that question. And this is the tool that we're going to use to be able to answer it. We want to figure out whether or not there's a pattern, whether or not there's an association between the cause and the effect that we've proposed in our questions. And to do that, we need to establish whether or not that pattern exists in the available data, and whether that pattern seems to have occurred on the basis of random chance alone, or if we can be fairly certain that it has not occurred on the basis of random chance alone. So before we get into this environment, obviously there's a couple of setup steps that we're going to be going through. So follow me to the web page where we'll be installing the first piece of this two-part installation for getting this up and running for you. So the first thing to mention is that in the module, you'll be able to see a link to this document that I've created for you, which provides you with very detailed step-by-step instructions for installing these two different pieces of software that we're going to be working with, one that nests inside of the other. And so I think it's important to just get a sense of why we're having to install two different things. I think this is a helpful kind of discussion. So R itself is a programming language. It's essentially an interface that allows us to provide inputs that will manipulate data and then provide outputs. However, this R platform, and as we go to this website, cran.rproject.org, as we go to this website, you're going to find, I think, that this particular interface that is sort of the default, what's called GUI or graphical user interface that comes on board when you download the actual sort of software that facilitates the use of the programming language on your computer. This is extraordinarily bare bones, and it makes it much, much, much harder to use. And in fact, like the early pioneers of the R programming language, the people who were first starting to work on this free open source technology for doing data analysis, they were using these kinds of very base level kinds of interfaces and making it a lot more difficult for sort of introductory users who didn't have computer science backgrounds to actually make this work. But now, of course, we have much better capabilities to actually make this look pretty and make this run nicely. And so RStudio is a platform that essentially takes the interface of R, that's the powerful workhorse that allows us to do these calculations, and then it sort of wraps it around this much prettier interface that we just saw in the previous scene. So again, let's go to this first website. I'll show you how to do that download, and then we will move on to discussing RStudio and how to get set up there. So once we're here, we're able to just click on whichever of these two links up at the top are relevant to you. If you're a Mac user, of course, OS operating system 10 or higher is required for this. Or if you're a Windows user, hopefully you're using the most recent distribution of Windows. I'm just going to click on the Windows one for now. You might click then on what's called Base. You'll see it says this is what you want to install R for the first time. I'm not going to click through this because I already have R installed on my computer, but you'll see that it just creates an executable just as if you were downloading any other app or software on your Windows device. If you were to go through here for Mac, you'll see that essentially you're just going to want to download the most recent package .pkg here. That's the Mac specific download sort of package, and so you'll be able to then click that, download it, and open it in Macintosh in your at your convenience. So it's very easy to do. Again, if you've got one of these two, you'll be able to download that and just run that software. And what you're going to end up getting is something that looks a little bit like this. So you may be opening up your R, just R executable that you downloaded just now, and you get like a box. Maybe it's white, maybe it's black. It looks something like this. You know, you can interact with it a little bit. But this is what I was just describing. This is the box, basically, that used to be your #1 interface with R in the past. But that is no longer what we want to do, because it's incredibly difficult, it's incredibly stressful to try to make this work. You need to know a lot more about computer science to use this base level technology. We are going to use this nice wrapper that makes this much, much, much easier for us to use. So follow me to the next website. We're going to learn how to download a thing called RStudio, which will make our lives a lot easier. If you get to this stage and you think I've done, I've done what Professor Hanson wants me to do, I've downloaded R, this is not going to be sufficient for our course. We've got to get RStudio. All right, now here we're on to something a little better. Okay, RStudio is a platform that is free to us. If we select the free version, we will be able to interact with R in a lot better way. So you go here just up to products. You can click on just RStudio, this first thing. Don't worry about any of these other things. There's a lot of confusing stuff on here, a lot of content for you. Just click on RStudio and you'll be taken to the RStudio page. And you'll be able to go down. We want to select here RStudio Desktop. We don't need server. We don't need anything more complicated. We just want the base vanilla RStudio Desktop version that is free. And so you can see it's got the open source edition. We don't want to pay $1,000 a year. There's really not that much of, this is a nice thing to have, but it really isn't necessary. Everyone I know who uses R is using the open source edition. This is not a huge benefit. It is not a huge upgrade relative to this. This is perfectly acceptable for practitioners. And again, I want to really stress the fact that people have been working on these things, creating this open source code for these software packages in order for us as scholars, as practitioners, as statisticians, as researchers to do our jobs. In the past, you'd have to pay. Either the university, UMBC, would have to pay for campus licenses for a really expensive statistical software like SAS or SPSS or Stata. Those are not open source softwares. And in many cases, like when I took this course long ago in the early 2000s, I had to pay for a yearly license in order to be able to take the course. And it was like a couple $100. It was very expensive to be able to do, and a huge deterrent to research. And so now I'm really happy to say that we have the possibility here of actually opening up research to more people, because it's no longer as prohibitively expensive just to get this going. So again, choose the free desktop version. You can go ahead and click download. You have to go through this, click download 7 times on this website for whatever reason. But you can see, again, if you've got your Windows 10, if you've got your Mac OS, if you're doing Linux, all these different Linux distributions, whichever it is, right? Just download your file. And that's the point in time when, after you've gone through the R install and now the RStudio install, you'll be able to boot up RStudio for the first time. I know this seems very confusing, but you never are going to be opening R. Okay, R is going to live on your computer, and you're going to let RStudio open it for you. So once you get to that point, you're going to go to navigate to your, to your programs. I'm going to just click this right here. You can click on RStudio, you can open that up, and you will suddenly find yourself in the wonderful world of R. So I'm going to next transition to sort of getting you set up here, describing what these different boxes are, and then we'll try a very brief sort of assignment where we'll bring in some data to play with for the very first time.